It's time to pony up to the table and hear all of what's going on in the county, where it all comes together. The County Grapevine, a 99.3 County FM, the voice of the county.
Welcome to the show. It's Monday, July 15th. I'm Lynn Pickering. Up first, late Sunday afternoon, I spoke to county photographer Phil Norton. He was at the Trump rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, when 6 minutes into the former president's speech, shots rang out. According to news reports, a Secret Service counter-sniper shot and killed the suspected gunman as thousands fled the scene. Phil captured the chaos on his camera and spoke to me after a sleepless night. Welcome back to the Monday Grapevine, Phil.
Good morning, or rather, maybe good afternoon. I don't know where we are in the day.
Right. Now, first of all, just explain how you came to be at the rally in Butler.
Oh, so this is an area where I actually grew up. I come back regularly from Canada to Butler County, Pennsylvania, just north of Pittsburgh. I was at the Trump rally in 2020 as a press, like I had a press pass, and that was held at the airport in Butler, Pennsylvania. This was actually held at the Farm Show grounds, which is an annual festival fairgrounds. So they changed the venue this time, 4 years later. I just went up there actually, again, as, my sort of journalism role. However, I'm a freelance, so I didn't really have an assignment. And when you're a freelancer, you just kind of have to self-assign yourself to things that might be of interest and you might be able to sell. So that's how I got in there. And
you mentioned the site where the rally was being held. It was open air, so I was wondering, how would people attending be screened? Because I know, when it's in arenas, they're screened at the door for weapons and that kind of thing.
Right. So, you know what? I didn't actually get that far on this rally because things broke loose before I got to the actual quote unquote arena. Judging from the 2020 rally, again, it was out in an open area. It was an airport, so it was just out on the tarmac. But the way they set up the bleachers and the fencing and the stage, it actually becomes its own arena. And the perimeter is closed. There's security. When I went through 4 years ago, I had sniffer dogs, check my bags, and everybody was very well screened. I mean, you couldn't have gone in the site with any sort of weapon. As we know now, that the shooter was outside that perimeter.
Right. Well, can you describe the scene and how it unfolded from where you were?
Yeah, so I was on my own there, so I sort of just showed up after the scheduled start time. 5 o'clock was where, the news got around that Trump's going to start speaking at 5 o'clock. I was actually leaving another event over at the airport, ironically, a car show over there at 5:30. So I was already a half hour after time. And by the time I got to Meridian, the town, and parked my car, and I took my bicycle, about 10-minute ride, I was coming onto the grounds, just before 6 o'clock, I think. And there was light security at the gate. They were mostly traffic. It was the Butler County Police. They were just traffic guidance, and there was no traffic now because everybody was already there. Probably some had arrived like at 8 in the morning, to get in there, get parked. So I bicycled into the grass and just a sea of cars, and some of them had flags, big Trump flags on them. I took some pictures of that, and I was making my way slowly up through the parking area. I could see the flags. They sell paraphernalia, like merchandise, Trump flags, Trump banner. You could see this whole area, with flags, but I could just barely hear the PA system. I couldn't really tell that if Trump was speaking or what. Sometimes they have the local senators and things do sort of warm up act, and then Trump shows up for the big entrance. There was nobody around. Like, I was out in the parking lot and there was really nobody. So I'm bicycling up there, and then I get to this area where there's all these vendors and the flags, and things look sort of ordinary. I was just going to keep going, to the arena. And I was just a little before that, I had heard the shots. I mean, I heard them. I'd say I heard, pop, 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 pop. I would have guessed maybe 5. And, it goes through your head. You think, was that a gun? You're going to these things, and that's always a possibility. But there hasn't been a president shot since 1981. Anyways, I got into this sort of runway of merchandisers and things, and I started bicycling up there. And one guy, the first guy, I have a picture of him pointing, he said, there was gunfire up there. And I said, yeah, I heard that. And then I kept going, and the first the first people streaming out of the arena were coming. And it was sort of calm. Half the people, these vendors, didn't even know that there had been shots. I heard some of them say, "What happened? What happened?" These people were coming out of the arena. I'd say the pace started picking up as it got more and more people. There were some running and looking backwards over their shoulders. I was filming with my iPhone. I mean, it's good enough quality, and it was easy to pull out. You don't look like media. These guys kind of hate media. And this one guy, I saw him sort of weeping. He was weeping as he passed me. He was an odd-looking fella, and I turned around and I went after him. I said, "Hey, like what's going on? Are you okay?" and stuff. And he literally broke down. He stopped and he looked at me, had these like googly eyes, and he started drooling and he went down on his knees, and you could tell that he was in shock. And he said, I can't remember, I have to look at the video, but he said he was like 40 feet or it was maybe even closer from the shooters. And people were saying they saw bodies and there was blood. And there's a lot of rumors at first. You don't really know what's what. At that point, we didn't even know if Trump was hit. And then somewhere along the line, somebody was listening on their phone and they said, Trump's been shot. And so, it was just like, it was really a crazy period. And I was bicycling against the traffic. So I was headed toward the shots, and these people were all running, presumably for their lives. You didn't know if there were other, another word I kept hearing was snipers. And that makes you think of, some of the events in the past, like I guess it was Las Vegas, where people were just sitting ducks for a sniper in the skyscraper. So you have this on your mind. I was going to say, though, going against the grain, it was, sort of a push of adrenaline, I guess. But at the same time, I noticed holding my phone that my hand was shaking. And now that sometimes happens when I hold it just with the thumb and forefinger. You sort of get a little jitter, like some kind of spasm or that. But I sort of caught myself and like, oh, maybe I better stop here. Yeah. And I filmed for a while at that point, and then I did turn back. And I stayed around for about 2 hours, speaking to some eyewitnesses and getting firsthand accounts. I have a lot of footage that I'm, like you said, I was up till 5 last night just going through. So,
yeah. Well, as I said, this conversation is being recorded late Sunday afternoon. The shooter has been identified as a 20-year-old from Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, which is about an hour or so travel time to Butler. And he was a registered Republican. We here in Canada, of course, don't have to give our affiliation when registering to vote. You told me about registering in 1975 when you were 18. Tell me about that, because it was right at that location, correct?
That's right. So I grew up south of the city of Butler, about 15 miles. So you go up to the Butler County Courthouse it was two buddies of mine right after we graduated from high school, and we thought we were going to register for the draft. In 1975, I guess it was Cold War and everything, you still thought about that's just a tradition in our community. And they said, went there, the clerk said, no, you don't have to register. The draft ended, but do you guys want to register to vote? And we said, yeah, sure. And she goes through the paperwork, and then she says, so, what are you, a Democrat or a Republican? And we kind of looked at each other, like shrug our shoulders, like, well, my parents are Republicans. I guess I am too. So, I mean, I had a lot of, not very much knowledge about politics in that time. I guess I was thrown into the bath of politics when I moved to Canada. It seems like a national sport. And now I come back here, and I realize that this is a very red county. You could say redneck too. And not that that's all a bad thing. It's just that that's very different than what we're used to in Canada, more of a liberal leaning and social democracy. Anyway, that was, the courthouse and the hospital, the Butler Hospital is where Donald Trump was taken after the shooting.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that because red donates support for the Republicans and blue for the Democrats. And I heard one commentator say that Pennsylvania is a purple state. So how is the support for the two parties divided in Pennsylvania? You said your county is Republican.
Yeah,
red.
Our county, Butler County, has 3 county commissioners. There's always 2 of them that are Republican, and there's one that gets voted in. I think they have to have another party, perhaps. So we're always sort of led by a conservative agenda. this is a rather rural area, small town rural, whereas if you get closer to Pittsburgh to the south or out east in Philadelphia, central Pennsylvania, Harrisburg, the big city areas are primarily Democrat. And that, I think that goes in line with just about everywhere. It's often minority. It's sometimes unions. It's poor, poverty. And so the rural area tends to be the gun people and the working class, maybe. We see a lot of Trump flags flying out here.
Well, the weapon the shooter used was apparently an AR-15 style rifle that was purchased by the suspect's father in 2013. It's 24 hours since the assassination attempt. As they said, it's Sunday afternoon. Have you heard any discussion about gun control? We know that former President Trump is a strong supporter of the NRA, the National Rifle Association. I wonder if anything will change.
Yeah, I like to, sort of go hear the real world news rather than what's on the talking heads on television and even social media. But I don't think anything's changed as far as people I know. I mean, people, they have their guns and they rationalize it like, we need sometimes to kill something that's eating our crop or just we live way out in the middle of nowhere. We need security. So, I mean, we hear the same thing in Canada, of course. And the difference is down here you can do it. You can have all sorts of weapons legally and you don't have to register. So I think in this case where it's too bad they don't know who has these AK weapons. I mean, at least even if they're going to allow them, we should know who has them. But, it goes against the feeling of freedom and I can do what I want, which is kind of the extreme end of the Republican conservatives.
Finally, there are a couple of photos showing Trump with blood on his face, held by the Secret Service agents, and defiantly raising his fist in the air. And he's been heard to yell, "Fight, fight, fight." So as a photographer, I'm just wondering about your reaction to those images and how do you think they'll be used as the presidential campaign continues?
Yeah. I mean, I've already sort of written on social media, like, this just assures him like as an American legend, whether you think it was all orchestrated or whatever conspiracy theory you have, or whether you like him or you hate him, these pictures, it's going to be on the cover of Time magazine of him pumping his fist and blood on his face. It's just the heroic legend, made in stone now. So we're living through a historic time. And, of course, you're right. They're going to make this political. And at the same time, the Democrats are as entrenched as the Republicans. I don't know there's that many, like you say, swing people. I mean, at this point, it's the same race as the last time. All my Canadian friends, they say, "Oh, your country down there is falling apart." And again, what you see on the news is very, very different than you see on the ground in the communities. A lot of the people that are voting for Trump don't love him, and they're very community-minded, family-minded. The others who are for Biden, they have their differences too. Like at the very extreme, they're closed-minded to their neighbors who are Trump supporters. It's just a strange phenomenon.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much for speaking to me again, Phil. I'm sure we'll probably talk again.
For sure. Thanks again, Lynn.
The conversation with Phil Norton was recorded late yesterday afternoon. Phil was one of the few observers to capture the spectators fleeing the site of the Trump rally. To view his video, search County Photographer plus YouTube. Today, the Republican National Convention gets underway in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where Donald Trump will accept the nomination as presidential candidate. His acceptance speech is scheduled for Thursday evening. You're listening to 99.3 County.